The Italian Wine Podcast is the community-driven platform for Italian wine geeks around the world. Support the show by donating at ItalianWinepodcast.com. Donate €5 or more and we'll send you a copy of our latest book, My Italian Grape Geek Journal, absolutely free. To get your free copy of My Italian Grape Geek Journal, click Support Us at ItalianWinepodcast.com or wherever you get your pods. Grazie mille.
Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Listen in as we journey to some of Italy's most beautiful places in the company of those who know them best, the families who grow grapes and make fabulous wines. Through their stories, we will learn not just about their wines, but also about their ways of life, the local and regional foods and specialities that pair naturally with their wines, and the most beautiful places to visit. We have a wonderful journey of discovery ahead of us, and I hope you will join me. Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Today we travel to Veneto, to the beautiful wine hills of the Valpolicella, just north of Verona, to meet my guest, Raffaele Boscaini of Masi Agricola. Raffaele is the seventh generation of the Boscaini family working on the family wine estate and the coordinator of the Masi Technical Group as well as marketing director. Good morning, Raffaele. It's a pleasure to meet you here. How are you today?
I'm very good. It's a beautiful day today in Valpolicella, and so I'm full of energy and pleased to be here with you.
Well, I'm just imagining that the beautiful wine hills behind Monte Leone, the new project, which we'll talk about later in our interview, but it's such a beautiful spot, and it's a spot I've very fond of myself. So I wish I was in the room with you sharing a glass of wine, even though it's only 10 o'clock in the morning here.
Yeah, no, it's 11 here.
11 for you, 10 for me here in England.
Yeah, it's almost about time here. Right?
Almost about, yeah. Raffaele, I shared something of the Boscaini family story and the history of Masi in my podcast with your father, Dr. Sandro Boscaini, which our listeners can still discover and listen to on the Italian Wine Podcast playlist. Today, I'd like to continue that story, focusing on two enduring elements of the Masi story. That's tradition and innovation. But first of all, for those who don't know Masi, don't know where you're located, can you share with us a little bit about where Masi is, where the vineyards are, so that our listeners can gain a picture of the beautiful Valpolicella wine hills and beyond? Because I know that Masi has vineyard holdings well beyond this classic heartland, even as far away as Argentina.
Correct. Yes, of course. Nowadays, Masi is quite expanded, as you said, even in Argentina, but we should go back to our history. So back in 1772, the first vineyard that has been cultivated by my family was called the Valle dei Masi, a very little valley into the Valpolicella Classica area. And where is it? It's just on northwest from Verona, which is the main town of this part of Italy, in the northeast of Italy, in the Veneto region. We are more or less 1 hour driving by Venice and 1 hour driving by the Dolomites. And this is, in fact, the hillside area where we lies basically at the foot of the Dolomites. And then, after Verona, started the flatland up until Venice. This area is particularly vocated for grape growing, since is on one side protected by the Alps, by the Dolomites, from the cold wind coming from the Central Europe, and on the other side, at this west of Valpolicella, lies the largest Italian lake, called Lake Garda, who provides a nice microclimate to this area, to the Valpolicella Classico area. So this is the area where we start from. Nevertheless, through the generation, during the years, we expand our interest in our vineyard in other, first of all, area of the province of Verona, including Badolino, just on the shoreline of the Lake Garda, and more east instead, the area of Soave, very famous for the white, which is, as I said, more on the east side. Moreover, with the years, we even went for a more, let's say, contemporary and even modern kind of vineyards in the Friuli area, in a part of the flatland where we plant even international varieties, including Merlot, Pinot Grigio, some Cabernet as well, for making even some more everyday drinking wine. Since you have to consider that being native of Valpolicella, we have been always interpreting the best product of this area, which is Amarone. And of course, definitely Amarone is a great wine, but definitely not an everyday drinking wine. Once again, this idea of making Amarone, being expert in Amarone, leads us to go out of the area into Argentina to make a sort of Venetian wine over there. In which way? By both planting the varieties, Corvina and Rondinella, and married with the Argentinian Malbec, but even using the technique of drying the grapes, the same technique that here we use for to make the Amarone and other interesting wines. More recently, we did start some collaborations as well in the area. So, I mean, having the possibility to run beautiful estates, including Cerrego Lighieri, the historical estate of Cerrego Lighieri, or Bossi Federigotti in Trentino Alto Adige. As I said, we can run these estates without purchasing, because, of course, they still are in the property of the family, but with the technical and commercial assistance given by Masi.
Okay, that's a great overview of the origins of Masi in the Valpolicella Classica, as well as how the family has over the years expanded throughout Veneto, Friuli, but also Argentina. Very fascinating project. I've really enjoyed wines such as Corbec and Passo Doble, that Venetian tradition with Argentina, grapes grown in Argentina. So that's a really fascinating project. I advise our listeners all over the world to seek these wines if you can find them. It's such an interesting marriage of Veneto and Argentina. Now, Raffaele, I've been visiting Masi for more than 35 years. What I always find most exciting, as well as inspirational, about your family company is how you're able to combine tradition, and I mean deep historic tradition going back centuries, with innovation, bringing the most modern ideas as well as technologies into the winemaking process to produce wines that are as good as they can be. You've mentioned the areas you're now growing grapes in, producing a large range of wines of all types and styles. I think it's definitely fair to say that Masi is most famous for the cru Amarones. I had an opportunity to attend your unique masterclass at Vinitaly, that vertical tasting of your cru Amarones, which was absolutely fascinating. So can you talk to us about this very special wine, Amarone, made by a unique process, and the approach that Masi take in the production of the cru wines, in particular, how you find the best way to allow terroir to express itself in your Amarone wines?
Thanks, Mark, for this question, because it allows me to really express what is the soul of Masi. As I said, we start our adventure in the wine business back in 1772, and we start from a single vineyard called Vaio dei Masi. So to transfer into a bottle the value of a piece of land, a specific piece of land, with its own soil, with its own climate conditions, and exposition to the elements, and of course, grape variety and technique of winemaking. So all these elements that are run by human are really what happens in every single vineyard you can find, and of course, even in the Masi's crew. Nowadays, we have three different crew of Amarone, which are two belongs to Masi, Campolongo di Torbe and Mazzano, and one belongs to the estate of Cerrego Lighieri and is called Vaio Amarone. And here comes the point, and even the idea to have this wine always produced, of course, when the climate conditions are good, to always produce this wine with his own style, which really comes from the soil, from the exposure, from the elements and the grape variety. And is fascinating to see how different they are. And of course, in the decades and the centuries, this tradition of separate vinified different plots gave us this richness. Amarone can be a beautiful wine produced with a grape coming from several vineyards and is fantastic. Let's say our Costa Sera or Riserva Costa Sera, but even can express really the character of a single plot. In this case, it needs to have a particular care in all the aspects, including, as mentioned before, great technology that allows, for example, in this time to fight on the climate challenges in order once again to give always the personality. It's very interesting, and you mentioned the tasting at Vinitaly a couple of months ago, to see when the characteristics of uniqueness of every single vineyard can be, let's say, you can find it even after 20 years in the same bottle or even in after 20 vintages, in different vintages. But for example, is undoubt that the more austere character of Mazzano and the sensation that is never ready because it's so nervous, so strong, is the characteristic of Mazzano Amarone, where the finesse and the great gentleness of the Campolongo di Torbe, even that you can have it of a wine with a 20 years bottle or with a new open bottle from the very last vintage, which was 2017, the one released. So this is the beauty of having this cruise, and is what really we can say probably allows us to be considered as the leading Amarone producer.
Italian Wine Podcast. If you think you love wine as much as we do, then give us a like and a follow anywhere you get your pods.
Yes, it was a fascinating vertical tasting, a unique tasting, and it was enhanced as well with the erudition of Professor Attilio Scienza, who was also explaining the characteristics of the soils and how that translates into the styles of each of the cru wines. But I think it's most important is that you're saying, Raffaele, that the goal is to express the personality of a particular vineyard, of a particular terroir through the wines that you're making. I'd like to turn to this historic relationship that you've mentioned already that Masi has with the Serrego Alighieri family. Of course, the family that are direct descendants of the supreme poet Dante Alighieri, considered the father of the Italian language, the 21st generation still overseeing the estate. How did this long-standing partnership come about? It's an important relationship and partnership of neighboring families.
Yeah, it's been started in 1772, so basically over 50 years ago. And it's something that somehow could be difficult to understand nowadays with the relations with the entrepreneur, with the people and so on. But it came very natural for my father and for the Count Serrego Alighieri when they do this agreement over 50 years ago, since it was basically as simple as a win-win situation. So on one side, you have this family running the most beautiful estate in the area with, let's say, no skills in sales, in marketing, never access to the market and so on. And on the other side, there is a company who was growing in this great approach to the market, all the marketing, all the stuff that you need, and was in a need of grapes, basically, the first part of the supply chain. So what's happened? Without any investment, we are access to this beautiful estate, and the Serrego Alighieri family doesn't have any more, let's say, headaches in how to keep the value of their beautiful estate. So the thing is working very well, which is in fact pretty much understandable after 50 years, and with mutual satisfaction. On one side, we, as said, have this great opportunity and honor to produce and distribute the wines with this prestigious name, and on the other side, the family has got their own capital kept alive and even having more value on that.
Okay, it's a beautiful partnership, and I think it really emphasizes that the importance that Masi always places on tradition and history and the deep, long-standing roots of viticulture in the Valpolicella. I've enjoyed visiting the Sorrego Alighieri estate many times, and it really is part of Italian history. Raffaele, I'd like to turn now to new projects. You're the coordinator of the Masi Technical Group. Masi's always been a leader in seeking new technical solutions to improve the wines, whether the precise period of appassimento for wines such as Amarone and Recioto, the refinement of the ripasso technique. I've seen how that's evolved over the years and decades for the production of Campofiorine and much, much more. However, during lockdown, you became involved with a new and exciting project that was actually, perhaps, shall we say, returning to a simpler, purer way of making wine. Let me read what you said. During lockdown, people rediscovered that they had time to cook, to be together, to share everyday wines with meals, like we used to do in the past before life got too busy. With the Fresco di Masi project, we wanted to return to making simple, genuine wines, come una volta, but as good as we expect them to be today. Tell us about the Fresco di Masi project.
That's correct. I think that the quote that you just read is really quite self-explanatory. But the concept is that, so we ask ourselves, come on, all the wines that we do, all the operation that we do in the cellar, in the aging, in the production, in the vine growing, everything is studied in a beautiful way to add something, to give more color, to give more alcohol, to give more ageability, to give more, which is a good, nothing wrong. But at the end of the day, sometimes we can have the wine with just simple as it is, just crushed grapes fermented, and that's it. So we study Masi Fresco with the concept of to produce a wine just taking out things instead of adding. So all the elements are there, just crushed grapes, and that's it. Fermented, not even filtered, in order to have a very clear wine, simple, that is very much close to the beginning of the supply chain. So the fruit, the grapes, right? And it came out to be a wine that, as I said, reminds a lot like the homemade wine of the farmer. But, as I said, finally good, without the problems of oxidation or too high acidity and so on, because it's made with a proper instrument in the, let's say, a modern facility with the modern technologies that allows the wine to be stable, to don't get oxidation and so on. All the packaging elements as well has been studied in the same way. A lightweight bottle, the paper of the label is totally recycled paper and recyclable, and the cork is a composite cork where the part of the recycled cork is kept together by beeswax. So it's totally natural. And so it's very quite interesting, all these elements in one wine. And in fact, the market take it very nice. At the same time, could be even a wine very easy to drink, to be paired with anything, from the pizza with the white, with the sushi and so on. It's very, very easy. And is even quite interesting for the young generations who are very sensitive to all these things around the sustainability.
Okay, that's a good explanation of this beautiful project. As you say, returning to a purer style, a simpler style of wine, but made with care and expertise and technologies where necessary. The vineyards are organic, is that right?
That's correct. They are organic, but the point that they are organic is not just to have a certification, but just to have, once again, being very sustainable as much as we can, and without any interfere with nature, at least the less that we can. Is even a vegan wine, so not using anything with animal origin into the production of the wine.
Okay, that's fascinating. And also fermentation using the indigenous yeast on the grapes?
Correct. Their own yeast that are on the grapes, the natural yeast of the grapes, of course, and all the eventual dynamic of the fermentation is aided with the managing the temperature of the fermentation in order to do whatever you need.
Okay, so it's a really fascinating project. And you mentioned the packaging. I want to highlight that because there's a very special bottle that was created in order to get this lighter weight, which of course cuts down on transport costs and is part of the sustainability project behind it. A beautiful bottle. Tell us a little bit about the bottle.
Yeah, the point is that is just some years that we are using a lightweight bottle for several products in order to have our carbon footprint less impactful. And this is the case where sometimes you notice that these lightweight bottle are quite poor. And with some premium wines, you are a little bit, confusing your customer, right? So we understand that we need to have a lightweight bottle, but we understand then we need to have it a nice bottle. So we went to this famous Italian designer, Piero Lissoni, who designed many things from lamps to couch and kitchen and so on, and many packaging elements of very several brands and so on. We asked him, giving him this interesting challenge to have a light bottle but nice and so on. So after a few months of studying of the right shape that on one side provide the same strength to the glass but with more harmonious design, and it came out with this beautiful bottle. And then, of course, the glass manufacturer Veralia follow us on this project and make it in industrial happens, right? The result is that from the normally 650 grams of an empty bottle of this category of wine, we are just below 400 now. So we save one third of the glass to make it. That means one third of the energy to produce the glass, one third of effort to carry the case, and one third to our hand to pour the glass of wine. So less energy used, the same, and a lot of enjoyment into the wine.
Okay, that's a great explanation. It's a beautiful bottle. And Fresco di Masi, the wines I'm urging our listeners to seek these out. I can even find them in my small town in southwest England. So they're a completely different expression from Masi to the great Amarone wines, of course, but still very much part of the philosophy behind what Masi are doing. One final wine I just want a brief word on because I sampled it for the first time at Vinitaly, which is Rosa di Masi.
Yeah, Rosa di Masi is instead a totally new project. So Rosa di Masi is a wine that has been in our portfolio since a long time and used to be basically a wine made out from some refosco, actually with a percentage of dry on the grapes. The point is that it still is a good wine, but we notice that the trend of the rosé consumption is for some wines that have different characteristics. No more this rosé wine that provide this quite interesting aromas of strawberry or some candies and so on, but more, let's say, serious rosé wine that tastes like an extremely light red rather than these funny flavors, right? Or sweet flavors and so on. So we went to a very high elevation vineyard that we have in Valpolicella, planted 5 years ago. Now it's producing Merlot. And we did a very refined vinification with a gentle extraction during the maceration of a very few hours, controlled temperature, and came out to be a very pure and simple wine, which really respond perfectly to this trend. The fact to have a wine that doesn't even seem a wine is more close to a beverage, a very light beverage, and became even, and this is nothing wrong with that, even a sort of fashion of style and so on. And that's why we even design a package that is like a perfume bottle, which reminds of some our graphic elements, but is totally out of any, lines of label that we have.
Okay, it's a beautiful wine. I really enjoyed sampling it, and I would say it's a versatile wine as well. A wine that really can accompany throughout a meal. Lighter in style, of course, but very pleasing to drink. I'd like to turn now to another really interesting project, a big project. I'm talking about the Monteleone project of Monteleone 21, and to about wine hospitality and the Masi vision of wine hospitality. I had a sneak preview at Vinitaly to visit Monteleone, but I'm not sure if you're open. You were very close to opening. Tell us about this.
Yeah, we are very close to open. It's going to be open in the fall, probably in October. Open to the visitors, and is in fact we can say in the more easy way is a visitor center for Masi, but in the reality is for us the way to have a direct contact with our consumer. Why I always say is that within ourselves and the consumer in the restaurant, let's say in North America, we have several steps. Our sales manager, our country manager, then the importer, then their sales reps, the distributor, and so on. So you have 7, 8 steps, and your message is diluted during this long chain. So how to do? Of course, we can spend millions in advertise, but won't have the same effect to have the people in front of you and talk to them and let them touch with their hand, experience what happens in the cellar, experience to have a chat with my father, for example, and listen the story by his own voice, or either be in one Masi Wine Experience restaurant in Cortina on the slopes of the Dolomites, and having the wine pair properly with why not and risotto alla Amarone. So all this channel of communicates are the one that really, on a way, create the closeness to the winery and its own soul, and of course creates a nice relationship with this passionate customer that will become our ambassador.
Okay, so in Monteleone 21, what will be in the hospitality center? Will there be the opportunity to enjoy the wines with food, for example?
Yeah, correct. It's going to be all of them together. So it will be, of course, the possibility to visit the winery with some girl that will drive our guests to see the winery, to see where are the barrel, all the experimental cellar, the drying loft. Then they can experience being a video to see what is not happening now. For example, if you are visiting in March, there's nothing there. There's no grape to be dried. There's no harvest and nothing. And so it's going to be the moment where the people can see through a video. Then, of course, after that, they can experience a tasting with a number of different choice of tasting from the more easy for the beginners to the more expert with, for example, with the clue of Amarone or back vintages, why not? And then, of course, they can have a nice meal paired with a wine, or in the meal where into the most of the recipe the wine is used as an ingredient. Moreover, of course, there will be a store where you can buy all the range Masi wine, including the large format and the back vintages.
Okay, so for our listeners traveling to Valpolicella by the autumn, the Masi Visitor Center is definitely a place that should be on any wine lover's itinerary. It'll be a fabulous way to learn not only about Masi, but about Valpolicella, about the production of Amarone and Ripasso wines, and to sample the full range in a very congenial and enjoyable situation. Raffaele, final question, and we don't have much time, so just a few brief words. I know that for the Boscaini family and for Masi Agricola, this link with history and tradition and art and culture has long been really at the heart of much of what you do. Can you just say a few words about the work of the Fondazione Masi?
Yeah, Fondazione Masi at the end of the day is a sort of natural development of our as you said, our passion for the wine, for the territory, and so on. So it is in fact a foundation that his ideal scope is to promote the culture of our territory. And our territory is the Venetian area where we belong from. How it works is made some studies, research, and of course publication. And the most evident of the activities is the Masi Award, who gives a prize to those people or companies or artists that really brings to the image of our region to the highest level in the world. And is a nice operation that we do since over 40 years because we firmly believe that a great wine, a great wine culture belongs to a great territory. And we are convinced that the Venetian area, it is a great territory.
Okay, that's great. Well, that's a great place to finish on. Raffaele, thank you so much for giving us your time this morning, for sharing the continuing and evolving story of Masi and the Boscaini family. Now I believe you're in the 8th generation. Is that correct?
I'm the 7th generation, but of course, I have 2 kids, and hopefully they are starting. But my sister's son, Alessandro, already started to work in the company.
Okay, so the family is now in the 8th generation. It's been a real pleasure to speak with you again. I look forward to meeting up again before too long. But for now, grazie e buona giornata.
Thank you very much, Mark. Have a great day as well.
Thank you, Raffaele. Ciao. We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Please remember to like, share and subscribe right here or wherever you get your pods. Likewise, you can visit us at ItalianWinePodcast.com. Until next time, chin chin.